3, 2, 1. Let's roll.
With another episode of Through a Therapist's Eyes. How are you today, Craig?
I'm doing good, man. How's your day been?
It has been a busy one. I
Yeah.
saw 8 people today in one day. That's a lot.
I hear you.
Welcome to Through a Therapist's Eyes, where we invite you to see the lens through a real mental health and substance abuse therapist. The goal to create growth, emotional growth, through the medium of this podcast, being aware it's not delivery of therapy service in any way. Feedback and discussion welcomed on the website.
ThroughATherapistEyes.com.
There you go. Using the podcast blog tab. Craig, it's the human emotional experience. Let's figure this thing out together.
Let's do it. So what do? You do an hour-long sessions?
Sessions?
Yeah.
Succession after succession. Yeah, an hour-long session
That's
typically.
packing it in.
Yeah, they in turn
So we
let's
do
just
a
bill
9 or
50 to
10 hour
60
day?
minutes. Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see 10 in one day.
No, but I'm just saying, if you're seeing 8 clients, 8 hours, and you probably got an hour or 2 in there buffer.
Thereabouts.
Or is it
maybe
back
not.
to back to back?
Back to back to back.
Wow. I hear you,
I take a
man.
lunch.
That's a lot of listening, dude. You must be a fantastic listener.
It can be draining sometimes. There's something called compassion fatigue. I feel it some days.
No doubt.
Absolutely, that's real.
Wow.
So you got to take care of yourself and decharge, debrief, and use that self-care. Episode 1,
Yeah,
right?
man. Hopefully you're practicing some of that stuff you're preaching.
NetSmart Technologies is our sponsor, as well as Metro, Line of Psychotherapy Associates. 704-461-8253. Metro Line has been kicking over there, doing 8 sessions a day, I guess you'd say, for, man, what is it, 2010 to now? I was going to say 10 years. That ain't 10. It's close.
It's close.
9 almost.
Yeah.
Our birthday's in July. We should probably celebrate.
We will. Mine's in July, too.
Huh?
Mine's in July, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's kind of ironic. Your fun fact, real quick, before we forget.
Man.
I'm gonna pop you with, like, what the heck did you do to your eye, man?
Oh.
We were talking off the mics. I didn't say anything. I was gonna catch you this way.
Yeah, so my fun fact, I guess, this week is I have a black eye. I got...
Dude, to the audience, man, I'm looking at him, and he's got, like, the entire scope of the top of his eyelid is, like, all
looks like I have on,
bloodied up,
what do you
man.
call that stuff that goes on the eyes?
Makeup.
Yeah. Rouge, or not rouge, but...
Red eyeshadow.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I got headbutted in my martial arts training.
Head-butted.
Yeah. Maybe I'll post a picture.
You want me to roll with you,
It's
man?
not as bad as the one with no tooth, right?
Oh, let's see. You're getting off easy with the fun fact, but that's okay because we got a lot to talk about. Parenting and social media. All right, quick little current event thing. And Sunday, I've been holding on to this for a while. December, I saw this. I was going to maybe think of doing a show on it, but it's just a mention that I'll throw out there about an article I looked at. A guy named David Crary wrote this from the Associated Press up in New York. Efforts made to ban gay conversion therapy. You ever hear of conversion therapy?
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Well, it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to convert, essentially, people that call themselves gay into being not gay. And so there's efforts made here to ban that type of therapy. And there's lots of different types of therapy in my field. And honestly, audience, we're not perfect in the field. We're growing and learning and always doing research to back up with empirical evidence on what we say works and what we do. And conversion therapy is probably one of those things that does need to go. I mean, it's a weird. There's some weird things that they do with it to basically like, look. When I'm meeting with somebody, I try to follow a social work practice, a tenet of meet the person where they're at. For young aspiring therapists or even seasoned therapists out there, I think we forget some of the basics. If you're a therapist listening or someone learning about the field, man, that's a tenet of social work is meet the client where they're at. And sometimes we start to get judgmental in the back of our head if we're being honest. Now, we got to be very careful about that. Trying to actively convert someone to something is a little bit, come on. That's a little bit questionable. So,
what kind of stuff happens in these conversions?
Well, I'm not going to really fully answer that. You can kind of Google it and look at it. I've carried it around in my file since December because I was really debating, do I want to do a whole show on this or not? And I don't want to put much time towards it, but it can be. It's kind of cognitively and behaviorally. I mean, I think you could say it's kind of forceful towards suggesting to somebody, "Hey, I really think you should be different than what you say you are," and that's not really meeting a person where they're at.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
Yeah, so it's a little bit. I don't know, a little bit hedgy. Just wanted to mention it. It's an article I saw. It'll be in the show notes. Check this out. 1951, anthropologist Ernest A. Houghton describes TV as a visual education in how to do wrong.
Oh, wow.
That's what he said. In 1954, Frederick Wertham writes, I have found that children from 3 to 4 have learned from television that killing, especially shooting, is one of the established procedures for coping with a problem. That's what we were saying then in 1950s. 1977, this is a little bit closer to us, Craig. Following the release of a video game called Death Race. We need to get some side effects or some sound effect maybe. Death Race. Gerald Drisson, a behavioral scientist, describes gaming consoles as, quote, definitely negative, ... The person no longer is just a spectator, but now an actor in the process of creating violence, unquote. Okay. Yeah, hey, I love my Donkey Kong, man. 2004, children with higher weight status played moderate amounts of electronic games. A study in the Journal of Adolescence read, while children with lower weight status played either very little or a lot. I don't know. I don't even know what that means, to be honest with you. 2017, though, quote, social media has been described as more addictive than cigarettes and alcohol, unquote, says Shirley Kramer, chief executive of the UK-based Royal Society for Public Health. It is no longer possible to ignore it when talking about young people's mental health issues, unquote. I found this. It's on show notes. You can check the links out and check it out for yourself kind of as well. But Craig, I thought that was an interesting way to start out, our show today on parenting in the social media environment. Because one of the leans, I think I'm going to maintain as a little bit of a tenet, as you see here with some of these ideas that we had when TV came out and radio probably was scary. You remember the War of the Worlds?
Yeah. Yeah.
The story is like, oh my God, the aliens are attacking. The radio is the devil. We just need to sit by the trees and listen to the leaves and be calm back in 1872.
The War of the Worlds. Yeah. If you don't know what that was a radio show back in when, Chris? Do you know when?
I do not.
And anyway, it was on the radios before TV, right?
Yeah.
And the show was about an alien invasion. But the problem is people tuned in the middle of it and thought it was a news report of the world actually being invaded by aliens, and people started losing their minds. I mean, I think we had suicides and panic and all kinds of crazy...
Literally.
Yeah, things happened because people thought that aliens were literally invading planet Earth.
From Mars.
At that time.
Right, yeah. I mean, and so here's the tenet that I'm going to kind of, base a little bit on, of a word of caution. I don't necessarily like technology. I don't necessarily like social media. I participate in it. I know I'm probably shooting myself down and shooting myself in the foot and I say those things, but I'm just not, it's not native to me, I don't know it. I don't understand it. I'm learning it. It's really cool. I'm enjoying some of it. I mean, this podcast is, I think I concur with you, Craig, it's the highlight of my week. But generally, when we encounter something new that we don't fully understand, we're afraid of it. We're insecure about it. We question it. We fear it. And, TV didn't change my brain too bad, did it you?
Well, we grew up with it, so...
I'm really kind of interested to see what Death Race is, as far as the video game was.
Yeah, I have
never saw it.
I've never been a big gamer, so I don't know what that one is either.
Sounds great. StarCraft 2 is the best video game out there. But, TV didn't kill our generation. Boob tube, Remember that term? You sit around the boob tube too much. Well,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, I was thinking about this show and show prep, and parents nowadays get criticized because everybody has judgments about parenting. You take your kid and everyone has to be involved and everyone gets to get a trophy and you have to take them out to this sport and that sport, do Cub Scouts and do this and do that and do dance and do the play and the theater and all this stuff, and kids have so many activities. When do they just get to sit down and be creative? Well, how can you have that and so much fear about them being on social media too much. That's not consistent. I thought about that. That's a new thought. I've never really thought about that, but that's not really consistent.
So say that again.
People get criticized as being parents and having their kids involved in too many activities, too engaged. Everyone gets a trophy in baseball and basketball and dance and all these things. And then we turn around and say kids are into social media too much and they're always plugged into their phones. Well, which one are we really mostly concerned about? You ever think of that contradiction?
I have not. That's an interesting point.
It is a direct contradiction of itself.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I hadn't really thought about that either till I was, doing the show prep and stuff. But I guess I got a lot of ideas. I think I'm going to blow through some things kind of quick so we can get to discussion a little bit. But Craig, what do you think about parenting in a social media environment? What's your general take on it as a daddy that you are?
Man, it's I don't know. I guess it's a balancing act. I mean, you got to keep an eye on it because some of the stuff we've talked about here in the past, like social media is not reality. And people post things and make themselves look in a different way than they actually are. And then you've also got the thing we talked about where it's easy to bully and put somebody down and be really ugly when you're sitting on the other side of a screen as opposed to sitting in front of somebody. So I think you really have to be on top of what your children are doing on social media. And with applications like Snapchat, where things disappear immediately.
But they don't really disappear, just so you know.
Yeah. So, you can't really see sometimes what's going back and forth. So,
right.
I mean, there's some challenges there for sure.
Yeah. To be tapped in on what your kids are doing. And,
yeah.
What they're exposed to and what they're learning.
Exactly.
They're learning a lot from the world.
Yep.
That's a good segue to Trish's thoughts. But before I do, we're building on shows here, Craig, man. It's kind of cool. I told you, 2019, man, we're going to start going deeper on different things and hitting things in a more involved level. We're building on episode 15. If you're listening to this show, here's some other ones you might be interested in. Love and Logic, episode 15. Episode 13, you just mentioned bullying. We talked directly about that. Episode 17, anxiety and what anxiety is and whatnot. Episode 35, that was recent. Social media and cell phones affect mental health. How so? Or does social media and cell phones affect mental health? It's a lot of different episodes, Craig. By the way, we're hitting 40 here in a minute.
Yeah, I know, right?
Not 40 years old. That was
a good 40.
Yeah. So, I had an interesting conversation. It was the genesis of this particular episode, and it was with a colleague of mine named Trish. And I asked her to say that name, and she agreed. I'm not going to say her last name, but she probably wouldn't mind. Trish she's a well-seasoned therapist, and she went to a conference one day, Craig, and she was very excited to come back to me and talk to me about what she heard and what she learned about. And I thought it was really fascinating. She was talking about the science behind increased anxiety in children and the way that parents interact with their kids about and with different technology-based tools. So let me try to paraphrase her thoughts a little bit, see what you think about it, because I think this is a little bit of the premise of the show, and then I want to run through some things real quick, and then hit some areas as much as we're able to. When we use youngins, can we say youngins?
It's a southern thing, but yeah, you can say that.
I'm a northern person, guys. I'm from West Virginia, just so you know.
What?
Yeah, but I do live in the South, so I can say youngins. I'm not saying yingins. When we were young, Craig, we would go out in the world, and we would be in the world, and we'd be engaging with the world, and we wouldn't see the family until we came home, hopefully for dinner time, because the only reason why we came home is somebody screamed loud enough to say, come home, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There was no touch base with me. There was no check-in with me. There was no engaging consistently throughout moment to moment being attached. It was, you're out there and you better learn how to deal with the world. But think about the different fundamental change that we have nowadays where you are constantly and consistently engaged with the world while you're simultaneously being tracked, monitored, or plugged in, or at a moment's notice connected with a text to your mommy or your daddy. That's a fundamental difference. And they were making the point at Trisha's conference, and she wanted to share with me as a parent, to be cautious about that, to let the kid go out in the world and manage the world on their own terms and in their own way, so that they learn by their mistakes, learn from the things that they're dealing with, and not be tracked. There's something that's inherent that seems to possibly be creating increased anxiety in young people by having our parents, us, you, me, Greg, with our kid with this device at all times.
Okay, so the conference that she was at was encouraging people to let their kids go out.
Yeah.
And be on their own.
To be careful.
Okay.
To be careful about that. We have this Life 360 family tracking app. Mm-hmm. I can literally watch you at all times, where you're at, location device, online, and know all the time. Now, that's kind of comforting as a parent, right?
It is.
Kind of comforting as a kid. I got my mommy back in pocket.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I've never thought about it from a kid's perspective.
Yeah.
But definitely from a parent's perspective.
Hey, I know where all my friends are at all times. My kid can pull up an app and he sees everybody down at the beach on spring break last week.
Really? So he's tracking his friends?
They're a little dot.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So now the interconnectivity that is there is fine. I don't want to totally demonize that. Because like I said, we need to be careful. As a major the theme of this particular show, from my perspective, is being able to kind of understand your own anxiety with stuff you don't understand, and to manage that. So I don't understand some of this stuff, but this is what I see, and this is what we're fearful of. And inherently, when you're watching over your child that way, you might feel safer. And they actually kind of feel safer. But inherently, and you'll see in the show notes, Craig, bold, right? What's it say there on number 2? Bold. Oh, I stuck you right here.
I don't see any bold on there, man.
Number 2.
Oh, in capital letters. Beware of the world. It will hurt you. It is a bad place, and you need help to manage it.
Now, would you tell your kid that?
Probably not.
Is it possible that you might be, if you were helicoptering? Of course, there's nobody a helicopter parent. You ever hear that term?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard that term.
Now, you might not think you are, but when you are constantly monitoring, you're inherently, unintentionally, quite possibly giving that exact message. Right? I'll read it again. Beware of the world, son. So you think
it's on a subconscious level then?
Well, I'll read it again, right? Beware of the world, son. Hey, daughter, it will hurt you, this world. It is a bad place. You need help to manage it. You can't do that alone. The subconscious is a weird term, but yeah. You're kind of telling somebody when you're constantly in touch with them, and when you constantly want to know where they're at and what they're doing, that you need me. You're not ready for that. You're driving, but I want to know your location. Turn your monitor on.
Now, are you tracking? Yeah. Are you tracking your boys that way?
No,
okay.
I am not.
I don't do that either.
I am not.
So I think a lot of what you're saying is maybe not surprising to me, but just different. That's not the way I think. I'm not tracking my kids, and I do like them to have a device so I can, if I need them, I can talk to them. But I'm not teaching them that it's a lifeline to me.
You know what might be an interesting experiment? Sometimes I challenge the audience. This is fresh. Don't do this, guys. But have your kid turn their phone off for 1 week, and so you're unable to catch them anywhere.
Well, first of all, my kid won't turn his phone off for 5 minutes. So that's not going to work, right?
No, right?
But I guess the question I would ask,
what do you feel like as a parent?
Well, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't like that. I heard a statistic. Maybe you can verify that this is correct. But, we're afraid for our kids to go outside and play because we're afraid that they're going to be attacked, molested, whatever. But we feel safe with them inside on their computer or phone.
Mm-hmm.
But they're much more likely, like 250 times
my
more
gosh, I know where
likely
you're
to
going,
be
yeah.
approached by somebody online that's
Right.
got bad intentions than somebody outside there playing out in the yard. I mean, is that true?
I don't know if that's true. I can tell you, recently in my office, it happened.
What happened? Somebody was contacted?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, man. It's that I could believe that.
How often do you deal with those kind of issues as a therapist?
You know, I haven't really sat down and thought about it, but I one of the things I do deal with a lot in my office is calming a parent down when they don't understand something and helping them to get out of power struggles. I mean, that's one of my primary jobs, I feel like, is helping to get out of power struggles. And kids kind of like the monitoring, but then they don't like the monitoring, and you get into power struggles. So they feel safe, believe it or not, and they'll never admit it, but as far as how oftentimes I've seen that, Craig, I don't know. I hadn't really been thoughtful about it, I guess because I see so much, but I can tell you, and I just did. I mean, it happened very recently, rather dramatically. You know, a kid was involved in some pretty heinous things. I don't know enough about it, but I know human trafficking is a very real thing. I'm trying to line up a show on that.
Right, yeah.
Because I don't know a lot about that.
I don't either, but you hear things about that. You know?
Craig,
and I think that maybe, and we've talked about these kind of things before, but like we're so plugged in. There's 24-hour news channels, and every time something happens to a kid somewhere, we hear about it.
Yeah.
And so it's created this fear in us to let our kids out of our sight.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of sin too.
Yeah.
But, you know, is that justifiable fear? I mean, with the slave trade, I think North Carolina and Charlotte's a bad area for that,
well,
right?
We're going to learn about it, and I think that it depends on your perspective. Is it a justifiable fear? That is an interesting question. Does it happen? Yes. So then, thus, the fear is justifiable. But there's a lot of stuff that happens. I mean, every time you're dealing with an issue and you see statistics and whatever, and you see like every 40 seconds somebody dies from their psychotropic medications.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. That's just made up, audience, please. But, you know, you hear stuff like that. Like, what did I just say? You know, every 3 seconds somebody's shot in the United States.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, you know. Well, I listen, we cannot live and parent. Here's a quote. You cannot parent out of fear. You cannot parent out of guilt. You cannot parent out of shame. You cannot parent that way because you'll begin making really
I think
decisions.
that you're right. Yeah. I think you have to be cautious, you know. And going back to that message, beware of the world. It will hurt you. It's a bad place, and you need to help to manage it. I think that's the wrong message to give your kid. But also, you know, telling them to go out and have a great time and nothing's ever going to happen to them is a bad message too. There's got to be a balance between those two. You have to. Bad things can happen. You need to be aware, but you know you can't let that dictate your life.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's scary too because they start getting into real things. I mean, there's a lot of parent fear to be had. I don't know. I hadn't thought about this, but I'm going to share it anyway. What the heck? I guess people, you kind of deal with it. Dude, I'm proud, man. We just got an insurance break. Can I say that? My kid who's driving, no speeding tickets and no accidents for 1 year. We got a break with the insurance company.
Good. That's awesome.
You know, he's done well. I'm proud of him. Very proud of you, Aaron. Very proud of him. And so
your wallet's proud too.
Yeah, man. Hey, he's getting some of that back because he's paid into that. And but you know, they have successes and they have failures and they have real things do happen. But I think you just can't live in fear from that. And our new wickedly rapidly expanding social media in technology stuff is you can't keep up. I don't even know what the newest program is, and that creates fear. You can't parent out of fear.
Yeah. So how do you manage your kids' social media?
Well, I don't tremendously. You know, I don't tremendously because, you know, I do kind of believe, you know, it's like they need to be able to be on it. I mean, I guess that's not true, Craig. You caught me a little cold with that. I mean, you know, there was we check it out. We use social media to talk about different emotional things. FOMO is something I want to mention. There was an event when he was in middle school. One of my kids was in middle school, and I don't even want to say it. It's awful, but a picture was put on there, and I came across the picture or found out about it. I mean, usually you find out about important things, by the way. You don't have to track and monitor and watch. Usually, if there's something important, you're going to find about it. You're going to hear about it. It's going to come back to you. And this one did, because I don't look after their posts and stuff. I don't. But I found out about this one, and it was a questionable picture that depicted an action that a middle schooler would do, and we had a long conversation about it, and he got to learn about the topic. I know I'm being a little vague to protect his privacy, but we've dealt with different pictures and different posts and different persons that have been on phones and media and whatnot, but because that's come back to us.
Yeah,
we're not.
So what advice or what would you say to a kid as a parent and a therapist about how to manage their social media? I mean, what kind of warnings would you?
Well, when I'm talking to kids in my therapy office, I'm talking about. It's a good question, Craig. The issues at hand. So whatever situation might be brought up, I'm always looking for a teaching moment. I do that as a parent with my kid, but I also do that in a therapeutic way with the kids that are in my office. So they're going to bring lots of situations. I mean, first, really the first 5 minutes of a session is the social piece to get rapport and get disarmament and, connection. I purposely do that. I tell people that. And then I move into what are events that are going on. And part of what I'm looking at, man, is what are you dealing with? What are the things that have happened? And then I know the clinical issues with diagnosis and different things that each individual client is dealing with and whatnot, and the science behind that. And then I look for those events and transform those into teaching moments. Interesting little tidbit there for people learning how to do therapy or newer into therapy or, just a different thought of how a therapy session works. But we have so many social media-based parenting teaching moments. I know I was vague when you just asked me the question before, but you can use that. You can use that. You say, hey, I see a picture of your buddy with a beer in his hand. What's that, buddy? How old is he? Where'd that beer come from? You got it from an older brother? Oh, you know how we talk about making good decisions? Yeah. Oh, well, what kind of decision? And you go on with the conversation.
Yeah.
And this is during a fishing expedition or, checking out a game on the TV or maybe playing a video game with your kid. How about that one?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things that you can use. I think that's the way I'm going to, put that as, using teaching moments.
Yeah. Would you encourage parents to have conversations with children about? I mean, it's probably a stupid question. But yeah, I mean, you got to talk to those kids, right? I mean, you got to talk to them about the dangers of social media, how things that they think might be good posts can be taken by somebody else in different ways. The intentions may not be received like you're putting them out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Craig, what's your experience with that with just your kids and stuff and family and talking with people? I mean, you got a kid who's posted something and you're concerned about it, you see it, have you triggered conversations about that? Because, yeah, obviously the answer is yeah, you want to talk about it.
And a lot of times, man, you can't cover every scenario, but sometimes, like you say, and those situations happen too late. My son posted a picture that he had good intentions, but it was received with bad intentions, and he ended up getting in trouble over it,
Right.
There are situations where children can take pictures, and my son didn't do this, but inappropriate pictures, and if those things get sent out, that can be a crime. I mean, you can actually be charged with a crime.
Oh, it's serious. Absolutely.
I think it was a girl. It's serious. There was a underage girl who sent a picture of herself to her boyfriend and got charged with distributing child pornography or something crazy like that. I mean, there's really crazy.
There's very real consequences.
In this world we live in today, there are some hard consequences for things that seem innocent at the time. I know a guy who sent an inappropriate picture. He thought to his girlfriend, but he hit the wrong contact when he sent it, and it went out to the wrong person, and that blew up in his face.
You mentioned that before.
Yeah, I mean, so there are taking a picture of a body part of yourself or anybody else is totally something that shouldn't happen.
Right. Sexual body parts.
Absolutely, yeah. Or maybe even borderline stuff. I would be careful with any part of the anatomy. So I mean, I think there's some obvious things that you should talk to your children about when it comes to social media. And I think you should explain to them that who you're talking to on the other side may not be who you think it is.
Phishing.
It could, absolutely. It could be somebody else. It could be
catfishing. That's what the term is.
Is that what it
Sorry,
is?
I think catfishing is the term.
So I think there's some obvious conversations that parents need to have with children about social media and some of those dangers. Some of the things, man, you might not think about. And we may not think about those things during this conversation here. And I'm not sure what to say about those. But
I think the thing is, Craig, in Love and Logic, episode 15, right, we talked about their main base foundational philosophies. And part of that I go back to is build a relationship with your child. A parent-child relationship is just that, a relationship. A relationship needs fostered. A relationship needs maintained. A relationship is involved. And so if you're just into power struggles, again, enemy number 1 to parenting is power struggles. You'll hear me say that over and over again in parenting type episodes that we do, because I believe that tremendously. It's enemy number 1 to parenting is power struggles. When you're in power struggles and you're just banging heads with your kid, you're not getting any conversation. You're not getting any relationship development. You're not getting any emotional connection. You're just getting struggle, power, back and forth. And the kid's going to say, I ain't listening to you. I'm not dealing with you. Hey, I'm going to get away from you. And that's what teenagers are supposed to do, by the way. There's some developmental stage there. But Love and Logic people with their philosophy, which I love, part of the trifecta, if you remember I've talked about, man, they want you to have a great, loving, supportive, connected relationship with your child. Your little boy needs you, Mom. Your little girl needs you, Dad. These people, these little people don't even have developed brains, and they're looking to us. And if we can't have a relationship with them, to get them these messages, and the messages are the same. The issues are largely the same. The technology is different. But, what are we trying to do as a kid? Well, as an elementary school kid, we're trying to, learn how to make friends and build relationships. In middle school, we're trying to learn how to accept ourselves. In high school, we're trying to get serious independence and launch our life. I mean, that ain't different from The Outsiders when we was kids in the 80s. You remember what The Outsiders is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a great movie, man.
It's an awesome show.
Yeah.
It's an awesome book. Read the book.
Yeah, I'm sure the book's fantastic.
They're kids. They're teenagers. And so, yeah, a lot of the issues are very similar. I'm going to take a break, and then I want to come back through and run through some things and get some more of this good dialogue. Does that sound all right with you? A good time for a break?
Yeah, man.
We have a sponsor, NetSmart Technologies. Ready for that?
Helper.com.
Helper.com?
Helper.com.
Helper.com.
You're right. That was corny.
Yeah, it was. I did. I did. I told her, I was like, let's try something new, man. Helper.com, NetSmart Technologies is a sponsor of our show. We love having them on board. They are awesome with computer technology-based solutions for billing and electronic medical records in the healthcare industry. Helper.com is a way to find them. They help you with progress notes right in there if you buy into their program, and they help you with electronic billing. They help you with electronic remittance advice. People have heard me talk about that. Just yesterday, DW was all caught up on the billing and stuff. Actually, she wasn't caught up on it. She was ahead of me. She had information that I didn't even have yet, money that come in and I didn't even know about yet, Craig. And that was because of electronic remittance advice.
That's awesome.
Where are they found?
Yeah.
Where are they found?
Helper.com.
All right. So back to the show. Let's run down through some things. I spent a lot of time there. Good dialogue back and forth though, Craig. The FOMO I had mentioned, to get back to it, fear of missing out. I'm really just going to hit through some of these things really quick because we can dialogue more about some of these things, and maybe I'll hit some of the other bigger spots towards the end, and we can kind of see what you think about it. So these are just things that are concerns about, social media specific with your relationship with your kid and parenting. FOMO, fear of missing out. I've actually been thinking about this a lot more and seeing it, Craig. And the kids, and I've talked about it with a couple of kids in my office, man, in the last few weeks, and it's a thing. It's a big thing. People get very fearful that they are missing out whenever they're not plugged in. FOMO, fear of missing out. It's a thing. I had a thought. I was looking at this. Encourage old-fashioned ideas and activities such as reading. Get a book. Someone in my life told me that, hey, a book is a bad gift. Why would you ever get a book? I think a book is a great gift.
I think books are great gifts too. But that's me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you gotta.
I mean, are books good gifts for teenage kids?
I think so sometimes. Kids can read.
They can.
Maybe an audio
when they're
book.
Threatened.
Maybe not. Maybe an audio book. Craving for fame, so to speak, with the innate question of, am I good enough? I think that's something that social media has created. Craving to be noticed, craving to get that dopamine pop when someone likes your post. What do they do on Snapchat or Twitter or whatever? You don't get liked, do you? That's a Facebook old fogey thing?
Facebook is likes, and I guess Instagram's likes too, right?
Is it?
You double tap and it
you get loved?
A
heart? Isn't there a heart?
It's a heart on there.
You get loved, man.
It's loved. I don't know. Snapchat, I don't know about. I have no idea.
But you do get a craving for fame. There is a thing there that creates a big yearning for that. Social media create.
Speaking of fame, this is just kind of interesting. Maybe maybe kind of along the topic. But my daughter, there's a little app called TikTok. It's a little social media app. Kids can do little videos.
Never heard of it.
She's got a classmate who's got like 13,500 followers on TikTok.
1,000?
Yeah, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, this girl's got 13,500 TikTok followers.
Put that girl in marketing when she gets into high school,
I'm
man.
You what, man?
It's cool. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, 13,500.
That's pretty strong.
I know, right?
How many listeners do we have? 13,500 this week downloads?
Oh, yeah, 13,500.
Okay.
That's our goal anyway.
Let's see. Social media creates a constant companion. And that is something we talked about a little bit ago. We're not going to have time. I'm not going to go back into it, listen to one of the past episodes, but you really get a panic about that. I think, do you remember I shared, Craig, a moment that I had when my phone died with the panic that created?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do remember that?
I do remember that. I got another thing I want to bring up real quick.
Okay.
Last time we talked about social media, you said that it was not addictive.
Yeah, I'm coming there. I'm going to come back there.
Okay.
I'm going to come back there.
Good.
It's a big point.
Good.
Facebook and the like creates unrealistic expectations about your child's success. Do we compare accomplishments because of this? Do we worry about developmental milestones because of this? Your little baby's not talking yet. I see online this little baby is talking. Oh my gosh, is my baby not right? Is something wrong? This interconnectivity creates that question. Have to manage the peer pressure more as the kids are more connected. How do you limit friendships with quote unquote those kids? Social media time interruptions, table rules on the phone. How do you manage that? Mindfulness skill practice with sharing mechanisms, right? Do you share this moment on Facebook posts for us old fogies or Snapchat posts for the young guys, or is it just a shared intimate experience that you and I, kiddo, have had alone? It's just some questions. Developing a relationship with a kid is affected by a lack of privacy, it could be said. I again want to point out the golden rule. Only post what you would say to someone live. Ask before you post. Standard life developments in our culture. Using social media as a tool to initiate conversations about all of these topics is what I would really suggest for people. Yeah, I know that's a little bit of a rapid fire on some thoughts, but raising your kid in 1592 might not be so emotionally different as it is in 2052. That sounds crazy, but you're talking about I love you and you love me. Here's what you're feeling. Here's some of the emotions. I'm teaching you, young kiddo, how to take care of your body, what nutrition you need, what is your religion background. You're engaging them in a relationship. You're parenting them. Social media and the effect on parenting. I know it's a title, but I guess what I'm kind of saying as I run down through some of these thoughts, Craig, is it really that different? Or is it just a parent and a child figuring life out and emotions out and growing together through their youth?
I would argue that it's different just because of the volume. Because now you have different emotions or more emotions potentially with all the things that are going on social media. There's anxieties over, like you said, likes. Nobody's liking my picture. People don't like me. Maybe your self-esteem's taking a hit. Whereas those things didn't happen when we were growing up, Like I was talking to my son the other day, and, when we got out of school for the summer, we wouldn't see our buddies again until school started back.
Oh, yeah.
But now there's no break. I mean, you're totally there all the time, And people didn't say the things to kids back in my day, face to face, that they say over social media now. Or they got punched in the mouth, I mean, so I think I see what you're saying. It is parenting, and I think you have to have the same kind of skills. But I think there's a lot more being thrown at these kids today, and therefore there's a lot more parenting. You have to do a lot more emotion control and teaching them about the world and those kind of things that you didn't have to do as much of 20 years ago or in 1592 or whatever you said.
So we're going to argue here, huh?
Well, I mean,
let's go for it.
I disagree.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go, man. I've been training, brother. Come on.
Let's throw down emotionally, not physically. You got me probably physically. We're not doing any of that. I ain't getting that black eye. I guess what I was listening to you talk there, what I was kind of thinking of is, when you were going to the, the homecoming dance in high school, how many girls, had multiple dating prospects and who was competing for that attention of that girl. I mean, the girl's fielding for invites or dates to a girl. So what's that dad say to that conflict and that state? We had baseball tryouts when we was kids, and, you try to get onto the field and the disappointment of that. I think what I'm saying is, you're right, Craig. I totally agree with you. The social media, another shout out to Adrian. I mean, I think of him a lot with technology because he helps me so much with technology. Hey, Adrian. He was a guest on our show with Technology Anxiety, you remember?
Yeah.
Right?
I remember. I know Adrian, too.
He made the point that there's so many more choices with technology. And that stuck with me for whatever reason. I think it was the ice cream example when he talked about it. So we do have a lot more options. We have a lot more outlets. We have a lot more choices, to make it simple. How you manage those things in the emotion of it, because I'm looking at parenting from a therapist perspective with emotions and relationship development. Craig, I tapped the table. I don't think that's that much different in 1852 as it is in 2052.
I don't think the skill set or
the emotions.
If it's a skill set, the emotions are too much different. I just think it's like swimming in the ocean. It's a huge ocean. There's a shark occasionally versus swimming in a pool of sharks. That's how I'm looking at it. There's just more stuff.
I like metaphors. Go further with that metaphor.
I don't know how to go further with that. You're swimming in a pool of sharks, but
so
there's more danger, more emotion, more opportunity for emotions.
Is there though? Why do you think there's more? That's just
I
curious.
mean, we just made a point earlier. We said that we feel safe if our kids in the house with their iPhone or on their computer, where they're more likely to be approached by a predator than if they're playing outside. 20 years ago, we didn't have computers to come inside and get attacked by predators.
So you are saying, to a certain extent, beware of the world, kid. It will hurt you. It is a bad place.
I'm not saying that. I think you have to be cautious. I'm not saying it's a bad place. I'm just saying you have to be cautious. I'm And I think that's a message that needs to be conveyed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Totally
I've absolutely
agree.
talked about setting your kid up for failure on this podcast before, and I believe that's a part of life. But I believe saying the world's a bad place is the wrong message. But I do believe you need to exercise caution.
Is there more risk, though? I remember as a child.
That's a good question.
I remember as a child being scared of a white van. And I don't know why, any van, that was drilled into me. Be careful about strangers, And I remember that. I don't know if it was any safer now as it was then or not. But I remember that very clear, distinctly. Vans, for whatever reason, was what I attached to my parents' lesson about strangers and be careful about strangers. I learned that. So they taught me, guard against that. Is that any more risky now with online numbers, with the ability of being nabbed or caught into a fraudulent scenario? We talked about, I think last week, right? Fraud and money grabs and invitations into sex trafficking. I don't know the numbers, but I wonder if that's a new fear or something that similar in the parent-child teaching.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And that's what I was asking you earlier,
Don't accept candy from strangers. You ever get that as a kid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, don't we kind of teach people, hey, don't accept a like from somebody you don't know?
No, I don't think you do that, but I don't know if there's more of a risk now or if you just hear more about it because we're in a different media world where you hear more about, there's more news reporting going on, 24/7 news channels. And
I caution us with fear. We talked about, I'm going back to, which, by the way, this is a very interesting conversation. And I think people are probably maybe very riveted to that and forming their own views. Hey, email us, guys.
Yeah.
ThroughAtherapist's.com. Email us. Put that post out there because these are real-time, real-day thoughts. Mass shootings. We have this idea that, there's all these new things happening. And I remember kind of catching you and almost kind of showing you some numbers that I did in show prep to see how that's not a new reality. That mass murders, you remember the numbers? You remember feeling that
numbers,
way?
Yeah. I remember we went
and it was
kind of
like,
numbers.
Wow, how did that happen back then?
Did we determine that it happened as frequently back then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we just had one in Charlotte yesterday.
I know,
right?
and wow.
At UNCC.
To those locally, thank you for bringing that up, Craig. Yeah, I missed current event just because it's really that new. To those families and people, what was it? Two young students had died.
Yes.
Killed. To the family members, our hearts pour out to you, and to the people that knew those victims and the injured, the first responders. Yet again, it hit us locally, didn't it? UNCC.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. But goodness, those things aren't as new. They're not. They're if you remember that packet of paper, it was that large. Thick.
It was definitely a revelation to me. I did not know that it went back that far or happened that frequently.
Yeah.
But again, every time one happens now, we hear about it on the news. Some more so than other, depending on some of the agenda items that were.
Yeah, I'm curious. We have downloads all around the world. Be interested to see how many people knew of the event of what we just talked about. I don't know. For those that are in other countries, it's a small city, I guess, Charlotte. But we did have that, and I wonder. I'd be curious to hear people pop in and email us and maybe get on our forum and see how many people actually even knew about that from far away. If you're in, Great Britain or Australia or, Poland, I mean, we have people there.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear what the coverage was. I heard that it wasn't as much as some of the others, and I have my opinions on why that's the case. I'm not sure if you want to hear those or not. But I'd be interested to see what the coverage was outside of our local area here.
We're not going to have a lot of time to go in some of these bigger topics, but I guess just to mention them because we're going into, a show today, and I'm aware of time. Craig, which one of these do we want to spend more time on dialoguing about and rapping back and forth on? The golden rule of only posting what you would say to someone live. We mentioned that last time. Dealing with cyber bullying. Dispelling the myth of addiction. That's probably the answer. Warning of identity theft and catfishing. Kids just don't know, especially developmentally when they're young, if they're really talking to who they're supposed to think they'd be talking to or not. And then discussing pornography and the exposure and whatnot that kids can get into. I think addiction is something
let's touch on, because we've touched on that before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that again, because you said social media was not addictive, right?
Yep.
But dopamine, which is produced by the body, is, right? Isn't dopamine? Can't you get addicted to dopamine?
No, your body uses dopamine and has dopamine in its system naturally and normally, and is a part of
we get a little dopamine kick every time we see a like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't you get addicted to that little high?
No.
No?
No. Not at all. We do not have a blood test for addiction. I think it's so funny how this comes up, Craig. I love it. We do not have a blood test for addiction. I cannot, take a picture of your brain or pull blood out of your arm and put it under a microscope to determine whether or not you have addiction. But we diagnose things in mental health through a series of symptoms, a series of characteristics that all match up. And the reality of it is, you have to have so many criterion boxes checked, if you will, of symptoms with addiction. And so, yeah, you love the feeling you get when you get something that gets you going, that gets you high. You drink a beer and then followed by 4 more, and you feel a buzz. But and that's activating the brain. I'll tell you, maybe a good way to go about this is telling you about my gaming experience and where I started to really get the idea of this. I've always liked video games. I'm a geeky guy, and it's fun, and it's one of my self-care items, And I played lots of games early on, Doom and Empire. What was it? Ages of Empires. People that know these games, they were fun little games, and you played a campaign. You played against the computer. Okay, but you would get tired of it because you'd run through the campaign and you'd beat the game and you'd go on to another game. Well, I spent 10 years during the lost decade, I guess, right, and didn't play video games. So I came back to the video gaming world, and I was amazed at the technology advance. It was great. Okay, so I got into gaming again. I played Far Cry, and I played Assassin's Creed. Man, that was an awesome game. And then I found StarCraft 2. Now, what was interesting about StarCraft 2 is I've got a set of friends that I can play with online. And that was a fundamental difference in the way that I experienced video games. I found StarCraft 2 probably 6 years ago, Craig. I'm still playing it.
Are you addicted?
No. No. But I'll tell you what I experienced with that is as I'm hanging out with you online and I'm playing this game, I'm talking to you, I have a relationship with you, and you're my friend. I know you in real life, and I know you on the game. I call you up and we decide we're going to play or not, and we've got a group of people.
Did you say that gaming is or is not an addiction?
Gaming, sex, food, and
gambling.
And gambling are the 4 process addictions. Now in the States we call it 3 process addictions: gambling, gambling, and sex. But the World Health Organization has said online gaming is a legitimate addiction, and I believe myself that it is. But when I found this new way of playing with other people, point is it didn't get old, and I just enjoyed it, and I stayed with it. And I tell you, auditorily, visually, intellectually, I'm doing strategy, I'm getting auditory perks, and I'm getting, visual perks by this intensity of this. And I tell you what, I will finish a game and I'm shaking. shaking
Really?
because it's so intense.
Wow.
Love it. It's fantastic, right? But the thing is, my body, my system doesn't have the criterion that I look for with addiction, specific things. I don't find that with a lot of kids who are wanting their likes, who are disappointed with not having enough little hearts on whatever. Dude, there's something different about addiction that we don't fully understand because we don't have a blood test, we don't have a brain scan. But I definitely do not feel, even though we get dopamine bumps constantly, even though we have anxiety with constant monitoring of us online, even though that we have this panic when we don't have it, that's different than addiction. Dude, people playing StarCraft 16 hours in a 24-hour period, you got a problem. And that's the way people have online gaming addictions, Craig. 5 to 6 days out of the week, they're 15, 17, 18, 20 hours in a 24-hour period in. That's
interesting.
I play StarCraft, as I just described it, for 5 hours, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta stand up. I gotta get out of here. It's too much. And I gotta go to bed because it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Got it.
Maybe 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so my whole thing there was I thought you got addicted to the dopamine rush. And because you do get that little bump from likes and stuff like that, I was thinking that potentially that was an addiction.
It's intoxicating.
What about people? I've also heard a statistic that the average person checks their phone like every 4 minutes. Is that doesn't classify as an addiction?
No, I gotta have a lot more symptomology than that.
What are the symptoms of addiction? I mean,
preoccupation, craving, tolerance. We look for life problems that get developed as a result of this. You've inherently realized that you need to cut back from it. There's shame-based feelings as it relates to it. You identify that your mood has changed. You become irritable or a different person when you're using a substance or engaged in something. You inherently feel guilty about it. You begin to minimize what it is that you're doing. I'm online for 18 hours a day, but I'm only going to tell you it's 7. You begin to, did I say preoccupied?
Yeah.
You know, so there are some specific things that we look for with addiction to diagnose it. And that's specific in the characteristics of it. And I think it gets generalized.
I think it convinced me, man.
Of?
That it's not an addiction.
Yeah, well.
I mean,
really? What are you saying?
Based on some of the things you said there, I mean, I maybe I'm wrong.
You know, I think it's the way I'd like to think about it with social media and with your kids is it's intoxicating. It'll grab you. It's exciting. You feel good with it.
You do.
No doubt. But addiction is a different thing, and you have to learn how to manage that. And so, yeah, give some time limits. You know, get on there and set the. Oh God, I just.
Maybe it's a new kind of addiction without some of those symptoms you were talking about.
Oh God, now you've just entered into a can of worms.
We're breaking new ground on the Through a Therapist Eyes podcast.
There you go, man. How do we wrap this up? What are we thinking about with some of the summary points? Do you think, Craig?
Man, put me on the spot. You know, I think we talked about having some conversations with our children, but not teaching them that the world's a bad place and they need help.
Be aware of the world. It will hurt you. It is a bad place.
That's the wrong
and you need
message
to help me.
Send.
You need my help to manage it.
Yeah, that's the wrong message to send, folks. We talked about having conversations with them and how bullying and those kind of things can affect
porn.
Well, we hadn't got there yet.
Issue,
We could probably do a whole show on that, right?
Right.
Yeah. Man, now I'm drawing a blank. Help me out.
Anxiety and what happens with constant connection and Life 360 type app and things. FOMO, being fearful of missing out. How to manage unrealistic expectations. It's new, Craig. Social media is cool. I love it. It's a good thing. It's new. But we have to be kind of concerned about what our relationship is with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Love and Logic is a great way to start. Check them out on loveandlogic.com. Hey, did they support us?
They don't, but they should, as much as we talk about them.
Yeah, man. Call them up.
They're listening out there.
Call them up.
Hey, guys.
Where are we going next? And take us out of here, Craig. I'll tell you where we're going maybe next.
Through atherapisteyes.com, folks. We love you. Thank you for listening. Our show continues to grow. Please tell your friends, man. Word of mouth is the best way to get the word out. We've got a lot of shows now. As Chris said, we're coming up on 40. And our goal is to get to raise awareness about mental health issues. We've got several shows now on parenting.
And substance abuse.
Social media, technology. So we've got a lot of stuff out there. And really, mental health is a daily thing, folks. You don't spend 2 hours working out your mental health like you do in the gym. It's a daily thing. So the more you can plug yourself into the issues that affect your mind, the better off you're going to be. So through atherapisteyes.com is where you can find out about all of our shows. We have an individual entry for each one. You can listen right there on the web, or we have links to your favorite podcast platforms. We can be found there too. We also have links to our Facebook and our Instagram, and we're sharing out there. We also have an email list. If you can sign up for that, we're sending out emails now on show releases and including some more information in those emails. And I think that covers it, man.
I am trying to set up. I've been failed because I've just been so busy this week, man. But to get up with these guys, but I want to get another group discussion on medical diagnosis and what you do mentally and emotionally when you get diagnosis. I got a guy that I know personally that has been hit with that, and a guy that I've known that you know as well that was hit with it as well. And we want to kind of talk about how do you manage the medical realities when you get hit with something serious, man. And if we don't get that set up, I want to look at conflict resolution, social media context, no text messaging when you're fighting over text, no heavy fights over text, but more so, what do you do with conflict resolution? How do you manage it? Thought that might be an interesting thing. We hadn't talked about that yet.
It'd be a good one.
All right. Craig, get your eye fixed, man. Have a good week, guys.